The 5 warning signs I ignored before one fall changed my life. I'm 84 years old, and I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me before I learned it the hard way. One morning, I stepped off my back porch. 2 seconds later, I was on the concrete. But the fall itself wasn't the worst part. The worst part was everything I lost afterward. My independence, my confidence, my ability to get behind the wheel and go wherever I wanted. Even the simple pleasure of walking into my own kitchen and preparing dinner for my family. And here's what still bothers me today. I had 5 chances to stop it from happening. 5 warning signs. I saw them, I felt them, and I ignored every single one. The 5th one is especially important because looking back, I believe many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are doing exactly what I did. Maybe you're doing it right now. So before I tell you what happened to me, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. What has your body been trying to tell you that you've been refusing to hear? If you're watching After 60 Life Wisdom because you want to stay independent, strong, and capable for as long as possible, consider subscribing to the channel. We share real-life lessons about aging, independence, health, and the things we often don't learn until it's almost too late. And while you're listening, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever ignored a small warning sign because you didn't want to admit that you were getting older? Tell me in the comments. You might be surprised how many people have experienced the same thing. Now, let me take you back to the morning that changed my life. I thought I was strong. My name is Ruth. I spent 31 years working behind the counter at a post office in Spokane, Washington. I was on my feet all day. I knew everybody's name, and everybody seemed to know mine. My husband died when I was 61. After that, I ran my home by myself for 17 years. Nobody needed to help me, and nobody had to. I was the woman everyone described as strong. Ruth, you're so strong. I heard those words so many times that I began to believe being strong meant never admitting that something was becoming difficult. I handled my bills. I drove myself everywhere. I bought my own groceries. I cooked Sunday dinners for my family. I walked around my neighborhood. I took care of my house. I did everything myself. And that's exactly why I didn't see the danger coming. I was so determined to remain independent that I stopped listening to the one person who knew what was really happening. My own body. Then came the morning that changed everything. I stepped onto my back porch. There was ice. I didn't see it. My foot slipped, and suddenly I was falling. There was no time to grab anything, no time to think, no time to react. Just concrete. 3 days later, I woke up in a hospital room with a tube in my arm and my daughter sitting in the corner, trying not to cry. A blood clot had nearly taken my life after the fall. The doctors told me I was lucky. Lucky? I couldn't sit up without help. But they called it luck. Then came 6 weeks of rehabilitation. I shuffled down hallways in a robe. I did exercises that seemed almost ridiculously simple. I shared those hallways with people who couldn't always remember where they were or why they were there. And I kept asking myself, how did I get here? When I finally came home, my daughter moved in with me. She didn't ask. She just came. There was a shower chair in my bathroom, grab bars on the walls, a rubber mat in the kitchen. Everything was designed to keep me safe. But when I walked back into my house, I felt like a different woman. Before that morning, I was Ruth. Afterward, I became someone everyone was afraid to leave alone. I haven't driven since that morning. I used to go grocery shopping 3 times a week because I liked choosing my own tomatoes. Now someone else brings the groceries home. I used to cook Sunday dinner for the entire family. Now I sit at my own kitchen table while someone else cooks. I used to walk my road in the evening. Now I rarely go farther than the bird feeder. One slippery step took only seconds. But rebuilding my life has taken years. And the hardest part is knowing that I had warning signs. 5 of them. Warning sign number 1. You start using your hands to get up. This one seems so small that most people don't even notice it. I didn't. Somewhere in my mid-70s, I started using my hands to help myself stand. I'd grab the kitchen counter, then the arm of my chair. Sometimes I'd hold on to the bathroom sink. I never stopped and thought, something is changing. I simply thought, it's easier this way. Then I started taking the side ramp at church instead of the stairs. Again, I told myself it was simply more convenient. But looking back, I understand what my body was saying. My legs weren't giving me the same support they once did. My muscles were getting weaker. My balance wasn't quite as automatic. And instead of treating those changes as information, I treated them as an inconvenience. Have you noticed yourself doing something similar? Maybe you push off the armrests to stand. Maybe you use the wall when walking down a hallway. Maybe stairs suddenly feel like too much effort. Maybe you avoid getting down on the floor because you're not sure you can get back up. These things can be easy to dismiss, but sometimes the smallest changes are the body's quietest warnings. I didn't tell my doctor. I didn't tell my daughter. I didn't tell anyone because it didn't feel serious. And that's the problem with warning signs. They rarely feel serious when they first appear. Warning sign number 2. My eyes were changing. This one embarrasses me now because it seems so obvious. My glasses were old. I'd been wearing the same prescription for years. I knew my vision wasn't quite what it used to be. But I kept putting off the eye appointment. You know how bifocals can be. When you're looking straight ahead, everything seems fine. But when you look down at the ground or a step, the lower part of the lens can change how clearly you see the edge. And that's exactly what happened to me. That morning, the light wasn't good. I looked down at the porch. I could see the steps, but I couldn't see the ice. There's a difference, and I didn't understand that difference until I was already on the ground. Think about your own vision for a moment. When was your last eye examination? Are you having more trouble judging steps? Do you find yourself squinting? Do you avoid driving at night because headlights bother you? Do you sometimes feel unsure about where a curb or step begins? If the answer is yes, please don't simply tell yourself, that's just part of getting older. Getting older doesn't mean you have to ignore changes. Sometimes a simple adjustment can make a tremendous difference. I wish I had learned that sooner. Warning sign number 3. I refused a railing. This is the one I think about most often. 2 months before my fall, my son-in-law offered to install a railing on my back porch. He had already bought the hardware. It was sitting in his truck. All he needed was for me to say yes. I said no. I told him, I've been using those steps for 22 years. I don't need a railing. But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was much harder to admit. A railing meant something to me. It meant I was getting older. It meant I needed help. And I wasn't ready to be that person. So I said no. 2 months later, I was lying on the concrete. The hardware stayed in his garage. He never returned it. And I think about that hardware more often than I care to admit. Because sometimes the hardest thing about aging isn't accepting a physical change. It's accepting what that change means emotionally. We don't want the grab bar. We don't want the cane. We don't want the walker. We don't want someone else driving us. We don't want our children checking on us. We don't want to admit that something we did effortlessly for decades has become harder. But let me ask you something. Would you rather protect your independence now or wait until an accident takes some of it away? A railing doesn't mean you're weak. A shower bar doesn't mean you're helpless. Better lighting doesn't mean you're old. A cane doesn't mean you've failed. Sometimes these things are exactly what allow us to remain independent. I wish I had understood that before I said no. Warning sign number 4. I was living on autopilot. Every morning I did exactly the same thing. Slippers, coffee, back door, steps, birdseed. I had done it so many times that I didn't even think about it anymore. And that's precisely the problem. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't really looking at the steps. I wasn't thinking about the weather. I wasn't checking the surface beneath my feet. I was on autopilot. And sometimes autopilot is where accidents happen. Because yesterday's environment isn't necessarily today's environment. Yesterday, the steps were dry. Today, they might be wet. Yesterday, there was no ice. Today, there might be. Yesterday, your shoes had plenty of traction. Today, they might be worn down. Yesterday, your balance was perfect. Today, you might be tired. The routine is the same, but the circumstances have changed, and your brain may not notice until it's too late. Think about your own daily routine. Is there something you do every morning without even looking? Walking down the same hallway, getting out of the same chair, stepping into the shower, walking down the front steps, going outside to get the mail, feeding the dog, taking out the trash. You've done it hundreds or thousands of times. But the familiarity can create overconfidence. We stop looking, we stop checking, we stop thinking, and then one small thing changes. A wet floor, a loose rug, a dark hallway, a pair of slippers, a curb, a step. Sometimes that's all it takes. Warning sign number 5. I never told anyone I felt unsteady. This is the one I wish I could go back and change. I felt unsteady. I knew it. There were mornings when I grabbed the kitchen counter and stood there for a moment. There were times when I felt slightly off walking down the steps. Sometimes I slowed down, but I never told anyone. Not my daughter, not my doctor, not my neighbor Gail. Nobody. Why? Because saying it out loud felt like giving something up. If I admitted I was unsteady, then it became real. And if it was real, maybe I was old. And if I was old, then maybe the life I had built, the life where I did everything myself, was coming to an end. So I stayed quiet. I thought silence was strength. It wasn't. It was stubbornness wearing the costume of courage. And that silence had a price. If I had told my daughter, she might have called me that morning. If I'd told my neighbor Gail, she might have checked on me. Maybe the fall still would have happened. I don't know. But I might not have been alone afterward. And that's what I wish I'd understood. Asking for help doesn't automatically take away your independence. Sometimes asking for help is exactly what protects it. So I want you to answer this honestly. Is there something about your health, balance, eyesight, strength, or mobility that you've noticed but haven't told anyone about? You don't have to share something private in the comments, but if you recognize yourself in this story, simply write, "I need to pay more attention." Sometimes admitting it to yourself is the first step. What I learned in rehabilitation. During those 6 weeks of rehabilitation, I met women I will never forget. One was 81 years old. She had been a nurse for 30 years. She knew more about health than most people ever will. She fell in her own bathroom, a bathroom she'd walked through thousands of times. Another woman was 76. She tripped over a rug in her living room. A rug, something she'd stepped over every day. None of us expected to be there. We thought we were fine. We were strong women, capable women, independent women, women who had raised families, worked jobs, managed homes, buried husbands, survived difficult years, and handled problems nobody else even knew about. And suddenly we were all walking those rehabilitation hallways in robes. That's when I learned something important. Being strong isn't enough. You have to be prepared too. Strength means more than being able to say, "I can handle it." Real strength is recognizing what could take your independence away and doing something about it before it happens. Strengthen your legs. Work on your balance. Pay attention to your surroundings. Improve the lighting around your home. Fix loose rugs. Consider a railing. Wear shoes that give you stability. Keep your vision checked. Tell someone when something feels different. None of these things mean you're falling apart. They mean you're planning to stay standing. I still go to the bird feeder. Today, I still go outside every morning. I still go to the bird feeder. But I do things differently now. I hold the railing. Yes, the railing I should have accepted years earlier. Sometimes I use both hands. I count the steps. I check the ground before putting my full weight down. I don't rush. And I don't care anymore if someone thinks I look old. I've earned the right to be careful. The birds don't know what it costs me to get out there. They don't know about the hospital. They don't know about rehabilitation. They don't know about the fear that came after the fall. They simply show up. And I show up too. That's what matters. I still have mornings. I still have coffee. I still have my family. I still have my kitchen. I still have my memories. And I still have a chance to make different choices. That's the part I want you to remember. A warning sign is not a prediction of your future. It is an opportunity to change your future. Maybe you're already noticing that your legs aren't as strong. Maybe your eyesight has changed. Maybe you're holding on to furniture. Maybe there's a railing you've been refusing to install. Maybe you're rushing through a routine you've done 1,000 times. Or maybe you've been feeling unsteady and keeping it to yourself. Don't wait for the fall to become your wake-up call. You can listen now. You can make the change now. You can ask for help now. You can protect the independence you still have. One last question. Every morning, when I stand at that bird feeder, I think about the woman I was before the fall. She thought she was the strongest person she knew. She was strong, but she made one mistake. She believed that being strong meant refusing help. Now I understand something very different. Real strength isn't pretending you don't need help. Real strength is being wise enough to accept the help that allows you to living the life you love. So before you finish this video, look around your home. Is there one thing you've been ignoring? A loose rug? A dark hallway? An unsafe step? An old pair of slippery slippers? A railing you've been refusing? An eye appointment you've been postponing? A change in your balance you've never mentioned? Don't wait. Fix one thing. Tell one person. Make one appointment. Take one step, because you don't need to change your entire life today. Sometimes protecting your future begins with one small decision. I learned that lesson the hard way. You don't have to. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment and tell me which lesson stayed with you the most. Strength, balance, vision, home safety, or speaking up. And if you've ever had a close call that changed the way you think about aging, independence, or safety, share your story below. Someone reading your comment may realize they're not alone. And if you want more honest stories and practical life wisdom for your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, subscribe to After 60 Life Wisdom and stay with us. Because getting older isn't about giving up your life. It's about learning how to protect the life you still have. I'm 84 now, and every morning I still walk to that bird feeder, just a little more carefully. And I am grateful for every single step. Take care of yourself. Listen to your body. And please don't wait for the fall to tell you what your body has already been trying to say.